In today's video, I'm going to show you a new release and bind, but actually today we're going to start with the bind part. So it looks like this. So what we have is the bind and then the release, long release, and then a shorter bind and a long release and a short bind and a long release. I think of it, when I do this, I think bind and then uphill, downhill, and then bind, uphill, downhill, and bind, uphill, downhill, and so on. You get the idea. So like we've done previously, once you've mastered doing this line and obviously doing it rhythmically, where you slow down in your bind and then you speed up in your release and then you slow down in your bind, speed up in your release and then slow down, speed up. Once you've mastered that rhythmically, then we do like we have with our previous exercises, we do an intersecting line. So we start off with our first line, release and bind and release and bind, release, and this is slightly interesting because when we're doing our intersecting line with this line, we're not going to start exactly the same. We're going to start with the release part. So we're going to basically come in sort of from here. So you come in like this, and then you have your bind, and then you have your release, and your bind, and your release, and your bind. So this is the first line, this one here, and then this is the second line here. So both going in the same direction, but with the bind over the hill, so to speak. You can also, of course, reverse the direction as we have done previously. So you would then have your bind and your release and your bind and your release, bind and release. And here you would, so here we're again starting in this direction, but this time we're doing the intersection line from right to left. So we're going back the way. And here you have your hill, and then your bind, and then your valley and your hill, and then your bind, and your valley and your hill. So here, this is the direction that we're taking. And just to maybe show you the intersecting lines, I'll just quickly draw up with the crayon, the blue crayon, so that you can see the line more easily. It's difficult to see what I'm drawing here. I'm drawing on top of a line that's already existing. And then with the red crayon, going the intersecting line. So that you can see that it really is the same. I hope you can see it better that way. So if you're finding that it's difficult to get a kind of harmonious band, or perhaps your hill is, like you can see when I've gone back the way here, my first hill is nicely above my bind, But in my second hill, I'm actually a bit lower, and the hills are supposed to be the same sort of height. Now, you might find that in order to help yourself, you draw a band with 2 straight lines, and then you think of your bind going kind of halfway between your lines, and your hill to almost touch the top of the line, and your valley to almost touch the bottom of the line. So then it would look something like this. It might help you. You might find it's too confusing or not helpful at all, in which case you don't need to use it. And the same thing, if you're wanting to then go, you can go back the way, or you can go with your intersecting line the other way. But this way you can sort of have a sort of rough idea. I'm just kind of halfway. Okay, so my bind is actually creeping up a little bit, so I need to make sure that my bind, in order for it to look harmonious, doesn't really creep up over the line. That's what these help lines can do for you when you're looking at making your band harmonious. It might also be that you're simply thinking, this is really difficult. It is a difficult line to draw, so you might just want to draw the first part of it. So in that case, you would draw your bind, and then your hill, and your valley, and your bind. And that way you can simply practice just getting the feel of the bind and the release, and the bind. And then once you've practiced that, and do go over it when you've managed to draw this and you think, oh, this looks quite nice and, you know, it's quite harmonious, go over it and just get the feel of what you're drawing. Just feel the motion and try and almost go in a trance-like state. You could do that. Of course, lastly, you could also connect up. So when you've, like we have previous videos, we've done our first line, and then when we're going back the way here we started, we stopped, lifted our pencil, or in this case graphite, off the paper, and then put the graphite down and then got into it. But you can actually do it in one harmonious continuous band. Of course, if you think this is really easy, you can also practice doing that. I'll just show you. I'll try and fit it in because there isn't that much room here on the paper, but I'll do it in sort of a small, so I hope you can see it. Hill and valley. And then you're going back the way. So here the band becomes one long. You start from the left, going towards the right with your hill and valley and your bind. Hill, valley, and your bind. And then you're doing a little loop at the end, coming back, doing a hill, and then a bind, and a valley, and a hill, and a bind, and a valley, and towards the hill, and then doing a loop. You loop around, and that way the band becomes harmonious, and you can kind of try and do that in a harmonious way. I hope you can see what I mean. So that's the exercises for this week, and I'll be back next week with another new exercise for you.